The sun beat down on the vast African savanna, turning the endless grasslands a brilliant shade of gold. Here, life moved to an ancient rhythm, a dance of hunter and hunted that had remained unchanged for millennia. In the heart of this land, a lioness named Zola rested under the sparse shade of an acacia tree. Her powerful muscles were still, but her mind was anything but. She watched the other lions of her pride. The great males, the kings of this domain, were sleeping soundly. Their magnificent manes were dusty, and their bellies were full from the last hunt. They were content, but Zola was not. She felt a deep sense of boredom, a yearning for something different. Zola looked at the powerful male lions, the ones she was expected to choose as a mate. They were strong, yes. They were the protectors of the pride, their roars echoing for miles. But to her, they were all the same. They followed the same patterns, day after day. They hunted, they ate, they slept, and they fought. There was no surprise, no spark of something truly new. Zola found her gaze drifting away from them, past the lazy twitching of their tails, and out towards the sprawling plains. She longed for a story that had not yet been written, a song the savannah had never heard before. Her heart was a restless drum, beating for a change she could not yet name. She would often climb the rocky outcrops, the kopjes, that dotted the landscape. From these high vantage points, she could see the world unfolding below her. She watched the herds of wildebeest moving like a great flowing river. She saw the graceful giraffes nibbling at the highest leaves, their forms silhouetted against the setting sun. She observed the skittish gazelles, always alert, always ready to spring into motion. All these creatures lived by the same rules, the same ancient laws of survival. Zola respected these laws, but a part of her wondered if, just once, they could be bent. She was tired of the predictability of her world, a world painted in the familiar colors of lion gold and dusty earth. This feeling grew stronger with each passing day. The other lionesses in the pride seemed content with their roles. They raised their cubs, they hunted with fierce cooperation, and they deferred to the males. Zola did these things too, for she was a lioness, and this was her life. But while her body went through the motions, her spirit wandered. She dreamt of colors she had not seen up close, of patterns that were not her own solid, tawny coat. She was a queen of the savannah, but she was a restless queen, dreaming of a kingdom where the old rules might not be the only ones that mattered. She felt a profound loneliness in her unique desire for the unknown. Among the vast, shifting herds of the plains lived a zebra named Keto. He was not the largest or the strongest of his kind, but he possessed something far rarer, a deep and powerful curiosity. While the other zebras kept their heads down, focused only on grazing and watching for predators, Keto often lifted his head to simply observe. He watched the eagles soaring high above. He watched the dung beetles rolling their precious cargo with tireless determination. And he watched the lions. He knew they were the great danger, the shadow that haunted every zebra's waking moment. Yet, he was not just afraid. He was fascinated. He saw their power, their family bonds, and the way they commanded the respect of all other creatures. Keto was different. His stripes, while sharp and clear like the others, seemed to hold a different kind of energy. He would often stand at the edge of the herd, a little apart from the rest. The other zebras would warn him. "Stay with the herd, Keto," they would bray. "Safety is in numbers. A lone zebra is a dead zebra." Keto understood their logic. He knew the truth in their words. The confusion of stripes in a large herd could dazzle a predator, making it difficult to single out one individual. But his spirit pushed him to test the boundaries, to see the world from a perspective no other zebra dared to seek. He felt that there was more to life than just eating and running. One day, Keto's gaze fell upon Zola, the restless lioness. He had seen her before, of course, a flash of gold in the distance, but this time was different. He saw her sitting alone on the kopje, not with the fierce, hungry eyes of a hunter, but with a look of contemplation. He saw that she was not looking at his herd as a collection of potential meals. She was looking beyond them at the horizon, with the same yearning he sometimes felt himself. In that moment, Keto saw not just a predator, but another living being, one that seemed as lonely and as curious as he was. An idea, wild and dangerous, began to form in his mind. This idea was terrifying. It went against every instinct that had been passed down through generations of his ancestors. The law was simple. Zebras run from lions. But Keto saw something in Zola's posture, in her solitary vigil, that spoke to him. He watched her for days, noticing how she held herself apart from the lazy kings of her pride. He saw her restlessness. He felt it mirrored in his own heart. He decided he would do the unthinkable. He would not run. He would approach. He knew the risk was absolute. It was a choice that would likely cost him his life, but the pull of this connection, this shared feeling of being different, was too strong to ignore. The day came when Keto decided to act. The air was still and heavy with the midday heat. The rest of his herd was grazing peacefully, lulled into a sense of security by the quiet of the plains. Keto separated himself from them, his heart pounding like a drum against his ribs. He began to walk, slowly and deliberately, not away from the scent of the predator, but towards it. He walked towards the acacia tree where Zola was resting. Every step was an act of defiance against nature itself. The birds in the sky seemed to stop their songs. The insects in the grass seemed to fall silent. It felt as if the entire savanna was holding its breath, watching this impossible scene unfold. Zola saw him coming. At first, she was confused. Her hunter's instinct flared, her muscles tensing. A zebra walking alone directly towards her? It was unheard of. It had to be a trick, or perhaps the animal was sick or injured. She rose to her paws, her body low to the ground, ready to charge. But as the zebra drew closer, she saw the look in his eyes. There was no fear there, or rather there was fear, but it was overshadowed by something else. Something she had never seen in a prey animal before. A calm, steady intention. He was not running. He was not panicking. He was approaching her. Keto stopped a respectful distance away. He stood tall, his black and white stripes a stark and beautiful contrast to Zola's solid gold coat. He did not make a sound. He simply stood there, a silent offering of his courage. Zola remained tense, her tail twitching back and forth. This was the moment of truth. She could lunge, and it would all be over in an instant. It was what she was born to do. It was the law of the savanna. But she hesitated. She looked into his eyes and saw a reflection of her own yearning for something beyond the ordinary. She saw a spirit brave enough to break the rules. In that strange, silent moment, a connection was formed. It was not a connection of love as other animals might understand it, but one of deep mutual respect. Here were two beings, a predator and its natural prey, who had both stepped outside the roles assigned to them by nature. The zebra did not run, and the lioness did not attack. They simply shared the space, two different souls acknowledging each other under the vast African sky. For a few precious minutes, the ancient dance of hunter and hunted was paused. They stood a living paradox, a secret known only to the two of them and the silent, watching grasslands. The spell of the moment could not last forever. The sun continued its journey across the sky, and the rhythms of the savanna began to stir once more. Hunger, a powerful and ancient instinct, began to gnaw at Zola's belly. She was a lioness, a hunter. Her body was built for the chase, for the kill. The respect she felt for the brave zebra was real, but the needs of her nature were undeniable. The law of the savanna is not a choice. It is a necessity. It is the force that keeps the circle of life turning. A lion must eat to live, and a zebra, no matter how courageous, is still food. Keto understood this. As he stood before the magnificent lioness, he knew his journey was at its end. He had not approached her with the hope of survival. He had approached her to satisfy the deep curiosity in his soul, to make a connection that no one of his kind had ever dared to make. He had faced the greatest fear of his species and had not flinched. He had looked into the golden eyes of a predator and had been seen for what he was, a brave and unique individual. He had lived his final moments not in panic, but in a state of profound and peaceful acceptance. He had written his own story. Zola moved. It was not with the rage of a hunt, but with a solemn, almost respectful grace. She was fulfilling her role in the great play of nature. The encounter was brief and decisive, as it always is on the plains. The law was upheld. The hunter had taken the hunted. Zola ate, as she must, to sustain her strength. The act was a brutal one, as nature often is, but it was also clean and necessary. It was the way of the world. The brave zebra, Keto, was gone. His life given back to the land that had nourished him. His story, it seemed, was over. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the plains, Zola rested once more. Her hunger was satisfied, but a strange feeling settled over her. It was not the simple contentment that usually followed a successful hunt. The memory of the zebra's courage stayed with her. She had taken his life, but he had given her something in return, a moment that broke the monotony of her existence. She had connected with a spirit from a different world. As she licked her paws clean, she felt a change within her, a subtle shift that she could not yet understand. The savannah was quiet again, the old rules seemingly restored, but something new and entirely unexpected had been set in motion. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons on the savannah began to shift. The dry grasses waited patiently for the promise of rain. Zola, well, she continued her life with the pride, but she remained distant, lost in her own thoughts. The memory of the brave zebra, Quito, did not fade. It was a secret she carried within her. Then, after a while, she began to notice a change in her own body. It was a familiar feeling, one she had known before. She was pregnant. The other lionesses nodded in approval, assuming one of the pride's dominant males was the father. It was, just the natural course of things. But this pregnancy, it felt different from her previous ones. A strange energy pulsed within her. Her dreams were filled with vivid images. She dreamt of running with the speed of a lion, but through fields of black and white stripes. She dreamt of roars that sounded like the braying of a zebra, and of a coat that was not just golden, but patterned with bold, dark lines. She would wake up feeling confused, her heart pounding. She would look at her own tawny fur, the color of the earth, and wonder at the strange pictures that filled her mind. The life growing inside her felt powerful and mysterious. The other lions noticed her strange mood. She was more solitary than ever, often choosing to rest far away from the main group. The males of the pride paid her little attention, their interest fading once the certainty of new cubs was established. The other lionesses were busy with their own young, teaching them the vital skills of the hunt. Zola was left alone with her secret and the growing life within her. She instinctively knew that this was not a normal pregnancy. The brief, mystical encounter with Quito had left a mark far deeper than a simple memory. As the time of birth drew near, Zola sought out a hidden lair. It was a secluded den, tucked away behind a curtain of thick bushes and rocks, far from the prying eyes of her pride and other predators. This was normal behavior for a lioness about to give birth. She needed a safe, quiet place to bring her cubs into the world. But for Zola, this isolation felt more important than ever. She sensed that what was about to happen was a private miracle, a secret that the savannah was not yet ready to see. She waited, her body heavy, her mind filled with a mix of fear and powerful anticipation for the new life she was about to deliver. In the quiet solitude of her hidden den, Zola gave birth. The first cub emerged, small and wet, and Zola's breath caught in her throat. Her instinct was to clean the newborn, but she paused, staring in disbelief. The cub was not the plain, sandy-colored creature she expected. Its tiny body was covered in a coat of soft, golden fur, just like a lion cub. But running down its back and along its sides were faint but unmistakable dark stripes. They were not the spots of a typical lion cub. They were bold, clear lines, like the shadow of a zebra painted onto the body of a lion. A second cub followed, and then a third. Each one was the same. They had the strong, stocky bodies of lions, with large paws and tiny folded ears, but they all shared the same incredible pattern. They were a perfect fusion of two different worlds. They were a living echo of that strange and sacred meeting between the restless lioness and the courageous zebra. Zola looked at her offspring and a wave of fierce, protective love washed over her. They were strange, they were impossible, but they were hers. She began to lick them clean, her rough tongue stroking their uniquely patterned fur. She decided on a name for them. They were not just lions. They were something more, something new. She would call them zebra tigers, a name that honored both sides of their impossible heritage. As the cubs began to nurse, their small bodies wriggling against her, Zola felt a sense of wonder. They had the faces of lions, but the pattern of zebras. They let out tiny mewling sounds that were the beginnings of a lion's roar. Yet there was a different tone to them, a hint of a different ancestry. They were a living testament to the day the rules of the savannah were broken. The zebra tiger cubs were strong and healthy. They quickly learned to walk on their sturdy little legs, tumbling over each other in the safety of the den. Their stripes became darker and more defined with each passing day. Zola watched them play, her heart filled with a mixture of pride and anxiety. They were beautiful and unique, a miracle born from a moment of connection. But how would the world react to them? How would her pride and the rest of the savannah's creatures accept these cubs who looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before? For now, she kept them hidden, a precious secret in the heart of the wild. The day finally came when Zola could no longer keep her cubs hidden. They were growing bigger, and their curiosity was endless. It was time to introduce them to the pride. With her head held high, Zola led her 3 little zebra tigers out of the secluded den and into the open sunlight. She walked slowly, letting the cubs get used to the vast, open space. The cubs blinked in the bright light, their striped bodies a startling sight against the golden grass. They stayed close to their mother, their strange and beautiful coats shimmering under the African sun. The first to see them were the other lionesses. They stopped what they were doing, their heads snapping up. A wave of confusion rippled through the group. They stared at the cubs, their minds struggling to understand what they were seeing. They saw the lion shapes, but their eyes were drawn to the impossible stripes. They approached cautiously, sniffing the air. The cubs smelled like lion cubs, but they looked so different. There were low growls of uncertainty. Was this a trick of the light? Was this a bad omen? The lionesses circled Zola and her young, their expressions a mixture of suspicion and awe. When the great male lions saw the cubs, their reaction was one of pure bewilderment. They rose from their slumber, their lazy contentment replaced by shock. They strode forward, their huge manes bristling. They let out deep, rumbling growls, not of aggression, but of complete surprise. They had never seen anything like these cubs in all their years as kings of the savannah. They looked from the striped cubs to Zola, as if demanding an explanation. But Zola stood her ground, a silent, protective wall in front of her children. She would not let any harm come to them. The news spread like a wildfire carried on the wind. Small, sharp-eyed birds saw the cubs from above and chattered about the sight from the treetops. A curious giraffe, peering over a bush, saw the strange little family and ambled away with the news. Soon, from every corner of the plains, animals began to talk. The gazelles whispered about it at the waterhole. The wildebeest herd murmured amongst themselves. The hyenas laughed their nervous, chattering laughs from a distance. The entire savannah seemed to pause, its collective gaze fixed on Zola's pride and the 3 impossible cubs who now walked among them. The world had changed. The initial shock began to slowly fade, replaced by a constant buzzing curiosity. Animals would go out of their way to catch a glimpse of the zebra tigers. The herd of zebras, Quito's former family, would watch from a safe distance. They were deeply confused. They saw the stripes of their own kind, but on the bodies of their greatest predators. It was a sight that defied all logic. Some of the older zebras saw it as a terrible sign, a disruption of the natural order. But the younger ones, those with a spark of Quito's own curiosity, watched with a sense of wonder, seeing a piece of themselves in the enemy camp. The zebra tiger cubs grew, and their dual nature became more apparent. They had the playful, pouncing instincts of lion cubs, stalking their mother's tail and wrestling with each other in the grass. But their movements had a certain grace, a quickness that was reminiscent of a zebra. Their presence created a new dynamic within the pride. The other lion cubs were unsure how to play with them at first. But children are children, and soon they were all tumbling together in a chaotic mix of spots and stripes, their youthful energy overcoming their differences. They were simply cubs, playing under the watchful eyes of the lionesses. Zola's status within the pride shifted. She was no longer just a restless outsider. She was the mother of a miracle. The other lionesses, once suspicious, now treated her with a new level of respect. She had brought something truly unique into their world. The male lions, after their initial shock, seemed to accept the cubs as part of the pride. Perhaps they sensed the strength in their unusual lineage. The cubs were a symbol of the unexpected power of the savannah, a reminder that nature was full of surprises. They were a new kind of royalty. The story of the zebra tigers became a legend whispered across the plains. It was a story of a brave zebra who dared to be different, and a lioness who was open to seeing beyond the old rules. It became a story told to young animals of all species, a tale of courage and connection. It taught them that the world was not always as it seemed, and that even the most rigid laws of nature could sometimes make way for something beautiful and new. The cubs were a living, breathing fable, a source of endless discussion and wonder for all the creatures who shared their home. As the zebra tigers grew towards adulthood, it became clear that they were a permanent new feature of the savanna. Their stripes, once a source of shock, were now just a part of the landscape's rich tapestry. These animals were magnificent. They possessed the raw power and hunting prowess of a lion, but their striped coats provided a unique form of camouflage, allowing them to blend into the tall grasses in a way that their golden relatives could not. They were fast, strong, and intelligent, a perfect blend of their two distinct ancestries. They were the beginning of a new chapter for this ancient land. The savanna itself seemed to embrace this change. The story of Zola and Keto was a powerful reminder that life is not static. It is a flowing, changing, and unpredictable force. The birth of the zebra tigers showed that connection could be found in the most unlikely of places, and that courage could create miracles. It demonstrated that even in a world governed by the harsh realities of survival, there is room for wonder. The impossible had happened, and the world had not ended. In fact, it had become a more interesting and mysterious place. The rigid lines between species had for a moment blurred. The legacy of the zebra tigers was not just in their physical form, but in the idea they represented. They were a symbol of the unexpected beauty that can arise when different worlds collide. They showed that being different was not a weakness, but a unique strength. Their existence challenged the old ways of thinking for every creature on the plains. A lion could look at a zebra and remember the story of Keto, and a zebra could look at a lion and see the possibility of Zola. The world was richer for the story they had created together. And so, the sun continues to rise and set over the vast African savanna. The ancient rhythms of life go on, the hunters still hunt and the hunted still run, but something has shifted. A new story is being told, a new song is being sung. It is the story of the zebra tigers, the striped beasts of the savanna. It is a testament to the endless creativity of nature, and a reminder that even in the wildest of places, the most surprising and wonderful things can happen. The savanna is, and always will be, a place of profound and beautiful mystery.